welcome into this episode of Craze's Corner. We're going to be breaking down 3 running back rooms, including the Broncos, the Buccaneers, and the Chiefs. We're going to tell you which running backs in those rooms we like, which ones we're trying to move on from, or which ones we're not even touching. We got Zach from Ocean State, Jeff, and Will from Media. Welcome in, guys. We just recorded a wide receivers episode as well. Went through 3 wide receiver rooms with lots of questions. You can go check that out. But we're going to get right into this here with, Russell Wilson's old team, Jeff's second favorite team, maybe still. We're not really sure. We got the Denver Broncos. We had Javonte. You're a Broncos fan. What happened to Let's Ride? You were all over Russell Wilson in Denver.
Russ, I'm still with my Hawks, man.
Now the Hawks are 3-0. He's a Seahawks fan again. It all kind of makes sense. But we got the Broncos depth chart with Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Tyler Badie. We saw Tyler Badie have a good game last week. We've seen Javonte still get majority of the work, but they seem to be mixing in everyone in a way that is not going to make anyone fantasy relevant. They just beat the Bucs in fairly convincing fashion. I don't see them doing that again to any good teams, but they did it. And still, there wasn't really anyone you were like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I started. Javonte wasn't great. Jaleel McLaughlin, they put the small guy in at the goal line. I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Let's get Javonte a touchdown. They don't do that. So for me, Sean Payton, I'm staying away from this running back room completely. I have Javonte in Zach's Dynasty League. And the only reason he's in my starting lineup is because it's him or Miles Sanders. And I can't start Miles Sanders. So Javonte is still in there for now. But I'm not happy about it. I'm starting Chuba as well. So I can't start Chuba and Miles Sanders. That would kind of be unfortunate. So yeah, I got Javonte and I hate it. He's the weakest link on my starting lineup. What do you guys think? Is there anyone you are excited about? Do you think Tyler Badie could work a role? Jaleel McLaughlin? Or are we completely out here?
The one guy I want now is on IR, Audric Estime. I'd take a flyer on him, keep him on IR, and then see what happens. But everybody else has had a chance. So I'm just like, there's nothing that, that whole running game is broken right now. So.
Yeah, they're definitely
totally agree.
You agree that you want Audric Estime, or you agree that
I agree the flyer guy there. I guess dynasty-wise would be there. The only bit of upside, I guess, if you had to squeeze out some sort of upside juice out of this back, group of backs, it would be Javonte, right? But I was never a big Javonte guy for a long time. I just always thought he was just kind of, I don't know, sluggish. I don't know, but he was a darling, especially in the dynasty community, when he was getting drafted. So I don't know. It just feels like a gross backfield. But I like you said, Zach, you're starting Javonte. Like that's a 12-man dynasty with no defenses. So you have a lot of spots to fill with a ton of injuries at this time of the year. So I understand it, but you can't feel great having a Broncos running back in your starting lineup because chances are you started the wrong one. The guy that's going to fall in the end zone is probably on your waivers.
Yeah, like Jaleel McLaughlin with his 14 yards and 1 touchdown last week.
Right.
What are we doing? This is supposed to be Javonte is the bigger of the backs. Let's get him the ball. No, apparently not. Will, any Broncos running back you're looking at, or you're just avoiding it in?
I try to avoid the Broncos in general, but I think Williams could have some upside with some receptions. Looks like he's getting consistent touches in the passing game. So if you need someone to fill in, if I had to choose between them right now, it's going to probably be Williams.
Yeah, that's where I'm. I don't believe in Audric Estime as a prospect, so I think that he's just a slower version of Javonte Williams. So if you're going to give me Javonte, who's already maybe not the fastest guy in the league, and then you're going to turn him into Audric Estime, who I don't think is going to be able to break as many tackles. So I'm just pretty much fully out. If I could move Javonte for another starting running back, I probably would, but trading can be hard sometimes. We'll move on to the team that the Broncos just beat, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We had Bucky Irving kind of had his breakout game last week. Todd Bowles come out and said that, Bucky has earned himself more touches. He's going to see the field more often. He's only behind one of the most inefficient starting running backs of the past 3 years in the NFL. And Rachaad White, never averaging 4 yards a carry. He's always in that 3 range. So I think Bucky kind of has some upside. He was really big in this game because they were trailing. So he was in there. He was able to, get those runs with, like, your box isn't going to be 8-man in the box because they think you're going to be throwing the ball. So Todd Bowles did come out and say Rachaad White's still the better pass blocker. So that would cap any sort of upside Bucky Irving could possibly have in the receiving game, in my opinion, because if they're going to be a third down, it's going to be Rachaad White. So, again, if you believe in the Bucs offense, then you probably still want to have Rachaad White. I don't believe in Baker Mayfield. I don't believe in the Bucs offense. So this is another thing where if I have to start them, okay, I'll start Rachaad White, but I'm definitely not excited about it. I'd probably still have him over Javonte, though. What do you guys think? Rachaad White, Javonte, or Bucky Irving? Who are you starting?
I mean, a lot of people picked up Bucky Irving this week, so I guess if you're in a position where you kind of have to start him, I mean, I guess roll with that. But
there's a vote of confidence. If you're in a position, you have to start him.
I mean, you have to, right? But I'm not sure of the exact schedule for the Buccaneers, but I don't know.
So they play. Ready? They play Philly, Atlanta, New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, San Francisco.
Wow, brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so honestly, you by default, maybe Rachaad White, like you said, still keeps a bit of an edge there because of their most likely game script wise going to be playing from behind in those games. And like you mentioned, he's the passing down back. I guess you can only hope for what happened last week, whereas you have small boxes and you're able to take advantage of that when you're playing from behind. But other than that, I'd probably feel more comfortable with Rachaad White.
Last week, Rachaad White had 6 rushing attempts and he had 6 targets. So I
think we have to listen to that. It's look at those defenses they have to play. If he's the better pass protection running back, he's going to be on the field. He is, and then we see that's actually turned into targets. So not only was he targeted 6 times, he had 5 receptions. So if I have to pick a guy, I'm going with White. Although I think Irving's probably maybe a little bit more dynamic as a receiver, if you're really asking me, but if he can't block against Baltimore or the Chiefs or Philly's defense, can't be on the field.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah.
I wish there was one I could abstain in, and this would be that one. This is just like you want warm milk or hot water, and like which one do you want?
Oh, it's more like warm spoiled milk.
Right. I always look at the upside, which I think Irving might have, but yeah. I mean, the only way I'd be looking at starting one of these guys is if I had like Gus Edwards and Samir White, which I unfortunately do in one of my leagues.
I was gonna say that was way too specific to not have that situation. Really,
that felt like someone who was a little frustrated with their lineup.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, then we got one more backfield we're going to talk about quickly here. I think we're all in agreement, but I know that the fantasy community in general is not in agreement as which Chiefs running back do we want while Isaiah Pacheco is out. I think we're all in agreement that it's Kareem Hunt, even though he didn't play last week because he was getting acclimated to the offense. He's now active. They signed him to the active roster yesterday, so he's going to be playing for this team. I think, to me, he's the guy that has the most value because he's going to see the targets. I don't think they're going to be giving Carson Steele, the targets out of the backfield. I think Kareem Hunt has the trust of the team already from what he's done before. They're saying when they brought him in, he doesn't look like he's lost a step. We'll see if his 3 yards per carry last year was just because he was in Cleveland with the injured offensive line that they had last year, and see if he can get back up to a more reasonable number in offense that should pass more. So for me, I like Kareem Hunt. I think he's a guy that you're probably going to be. I would rather start Kareem Hunt than any of the other running backs we've talked about on the show so far. What do you guys think?
Oh, Kareem Hunt. It's a redemption tour. It's a great story.
Groundhog Day, man. It's just like every year, it's just a matter of time before Kareem Hunt makes his way into the NFL again. It's like, does this guy just like hate off-season training or something? Like he just there's no way that he is not like better than some of the RB3s that are signed in the. I mean, maybe it's a price thing. I don't know, but yeah, a Kareem Hunt would be my choice here. It was like a 60-30 split for Steele and P Ryan, as far as Steele being the between the tackles guy and P Ryan his traditional role as a pass catcher. But the thing with last year with Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken, that was the Joe Flacco Cleveland Browns
he had
for a good amount of time.
9 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like Carson Steele might not even get the goal line work with Kareem Hunt back in town.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because it may be Pacheco. I mean, what's the other one?
Steele?
Hurry. No. Who's the other running back in Kansas City right now? Well, not Steele, but
P Ryan.
P Ryan.
P Ryan. I think it's P Ryan and Hunt. Right? Yeah. And Hunt is going to come in and he's going to be a vulture on those short yardage touchdowns. Yeah, it's going to be the fantasy gift that keeps giving.
I certainly hope so. I picked him up in too many leagues for him not to help me out. Jeff, what do you think?
I missed a lot of what you guys were saying, but one of my things is Hunt. Basically, Pacheco reminds me of Hunt, what Hunt was when he was first there, the style and everything. Yeah. So that's why I think it's just a natural fit, and it seems like Hunt was their immediate first call. So I think Andy Reid is feeling that as well. I still think he has the ability to break away better than both Carson Steele and especially Samaje Perine as well. Because that's right now. You know, Pacheco, he would run wild. He could break out and go. I think Hunt, even though he's a little bit older, he still has that ability more than anybody else they have on the roster right now.
Mm-hmm. And Hunt was dropped in a few leagues. If you look at like sleepers, like most dropped players, Hunt was dropped because a lot of people were expecting him to do something last week. When they brought him in midweek, he needs some time to get, this is a guy who hasn't played football since last year. He's got to get into football shape, make sure he knows the offense, at least to a certain extent, so that he can be on the field. So yeah, Kareem Hunt, watch out for him this week. He might not be elite this week. He might not be great this week, but they'll slowly start working him more and more in. And as long as those snap percentages are going up, I think we're doing all right. There we go. There's 3 running back backfields. Like I said, we recorded a wide receivers one, so if you want to go check out 3 wide receiving cores, go do that. Thank you guys for joining. Hope everyone enjoyed. We'll see you again next week.
All right.
Let's splash.
Let's splash.